Okay, so Yachimo, greetings. Yet I say we thank you once again for tuning in. I'm Odwirafo Kwesi Radnehambata Akan, Odwirafo of ANKWAMUA and Amaruka Tifimu. That is the Akwamu nation in North America within Odwirama, the purified nation, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, African Black people in the Western Hemisphere. So we're continuing with our series, and we're going to pull this back up on NKWAMUA, which means whole life transformation. So we dealt with, in the last live that we did, we talked about the male divinity, Sika, also Sikar or Sekar and so forth, the male divinity of the sacred substance, gold and so forth. But now we want to talk about, and we talked about financial, purification, recalibration. And we were talking about Sika's, concretization of the gold mineral in the earth and so forth, and the spiritual force that animates that. Now we want to talk about this association of Het Heru, who's also called Afua and Afia and Akan. She's Oshun in Yoruba, she's Erzulia in Vodun and so forth, but she's Het Heru in ancient Kemet, also Het Hert. And she's also called Cheche in Akan, which is this vocalization of Het Hert from ancient Kemet. We want to talk about her relationship to Sika, relationship to gold, and we're talking about incorruptible abundance. When we say incorruptible abundance meditation, we're going to get into that. So, the first thing that we show right here on the flyer . So for those who are unaware, let me pull this up right quick so you can see the text. NKWAMUA is not only a term in the Akan language, meaning Nkwa means life, the same as Ankwa or Ankh in ancient Kemet, meaning life. In the Akan language of Ghana and Ivory Coast, in West Africa, Afuraitkaitnit, Ankwa means life. Mua means whole or whole condition. So NKWAMUA means whole life. So we have a whole life approach to physical soundness and spiritual soundness rooted in the center of culture. So, but the reason why we named this series the NKWAMUA Whole Life series is based on our approach, and it's also based upon one of our books, the NKWAMUA Whole Life Journal. This is one of the 31 books that I have published. You can download the ebook versions of all 31 of my books from my NKWAMUA page on the website. We'll put that link in the chat room. And in fact, this is the link right here. So you'll see this book in the NKWAMUA link, as well as all of the other 30 books. So this is a specific journal. We talk about a number of different things in the journal, but this is the name of the journal, but also the philosophical approach. So we say NKWAMUA is a term comprised of the two Akan words, Nkwa, life, vitality, strength, and Mua, whole, complete, good condition. NKWAMUA is a journal which addresses the whole life of the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, meaning African Black individual. Each issue of NKWAMUA, therefore, provides information on physical soundness, inclusive of natural foods and melanin, substance abuse, abstinence, physical soundness, and spiritual soundness, inclusive of emotional, mental, and psychological balance and spiritual balance, centered in cultural awareness. NKWAMUA resounds the awareness of our individual and collective function, purpose as a people. So when you go through the journal, you'll see wisdom from our culture. We have a section dealing with 7-part definition of abatum or melanin. We have a section dealing with holistic health, natural foods associated with, plant physiognomy, the shapes of the plants that are in the same shape of organs and glands and structures and so forth, and their relationship to the organs and glands and structures that they have the same form of. A number of different things that we talk about in the journal, but the key is we're talking about a whole life approach. This is the Great Myriad or Pyramid, and we show for example, the the hieroglyphic script, and one of the cursive versions of that is called hieratic today and demotic. And we show the numeral system and how the Hindu, Arabic, and later Latin stole the actual characters that make up the numeral system that we use today. And they call it Hindi-Arabic numeral system, which of course they stole that directly from our people. Just like they learned about science and art and mathematics and medicine and everything else from our people. So the Whole Life Journal deals with this whole life approach to physical and spiritual wellness centered in our culture. So we want to use that model, that approach, when we're talking about cosmology and how it impacts us. We talk about the nature and function of the forces in nature that animate the sun, moon, stars, black substance of space, oceans, rivers, streams, mountains, earth mother, atmosphere, and so forth. We are dependent on the water, of course, to nourish us of earth, the atmospheric elements, the earth, the plant life, animal life, mineral life, and so forth within earth, the solar energy, the gravitational pull of the moon, and so forth. Our bodies are dependent on these things in order to survive and thrive. Our spirit body is dependent upon the spiritual forces that animate the sun, that animate the moon, that animate the planets, that animate the oceans, the rivers, the atmosphere, inner core of earth, the mantle, upper mantle, the soil, black soil, red soil, and so forth. These are the forces in nature that we call Abosom in Akan, the Orishan, Yoruba, and Vodou and Ewe, and so forth, Ntorutu in ancient Kanit and Kemet. And let me just show you an important direct relationship. Whenever we're talking about forces in nature, we can also reflect these things and relate them to our physical body. And then we'll get into this information about Het Heru directly relates. So on one of our pages and two of the books that we've published, we talk about the 7-day week in the Akan tradition and how we have certain soul names, Akradin, that reflect the day of the week that we're born on, but they're really reflecting the spiritual force that governs the solar, lunar, and planetary body that governs that day of the week. So Sunday is the day of the sun. We call it Awusida or Akwesida Akan. Joda is the day of the moon. Moon day or Monday is called Joda, and so forth. And we have names for each day of the week, but the spiritual forces that animate each day. And we show that on this page, but we also have a chart that's important. So we said Akradin Bosom, the divinities, the Abosom of the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies governing the 7-day week, 11 male and female divinities, and we show their statuary in Akan, as well as their popular forms in ancient Kanit and Kemet, the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies, but also the 11 major body systems that they govern. So just like you have that solar energy or lunar energy or energy from these different planets and so forth, 11 major divinities that govern the cyclical function of the 7-day week. The planets, sun, moon, and planets move in a certain formation every 7 days. That affects all natural cycles on Earth, just like we know the moon affects the rise of the tides and so forth. And because your body is 70+% water, just like Earth, it also affects the rise and tides of your body as well. The other planets have gravitational effects upon the magnetosphere of Earth, and therefore plant life, animal life, mineral life, and Afuraitkaitnit, human life on Earth. Because we move in a cyclical pattern every 7 days, there's a measurable upon plant life, animal life, mineral life, and Afuraitkaitnit, human life on Earth physiologically, but also with regard to our temperament and therefore our emotional state, hormonal secretions, and so forth, and the way we process information. So we understand that, and when we're born on a certain day, it's a reflective of what spiritual force governs us and why we incarnated into the world on that specific day. So as you can see here, you have these 11 forces that govern the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies, male and female, but you also have the 11 body systems. So the forces in nature that affect plant life, animal life, mineral life, and so forth, also affect our major body systems that regulate order within us. So there's a direct relationship about what's above and below. So as above, so below. That's a proverb in ancient Khanate Kemet. Whatever is happening in the macrocosm is also manifest in the microcosm. Now, let's get into this information with regard to Cheche or Het Heru. So as you can see on this flyer, we say that first we show there's an image here. And you see it says, honey is the only food that will not rot. A jar of honey may remain edible for over 3,000 years. And of course, they found, containers of honey in the tombs in ancient Kemet. When they opened them, it was just like the honey was just, placed in there that same day because it's incorruptible. The same is true of that golden energy, solar energy, that once it gets concretized within Earth, as we talked about in the live dealing with Sika, the divinity Sika, that solar energy that penetrates Earth and becomes concretized in Earth. Gold is a manifestation of that sacred solar divine living energy that becomes concretized in Earth. And gold is an incorruptible metal. It does not rust. So just like honey is not corruptible, gold itself is incorruptible. And just like you have iron and zinc and copper and various metals in your body, and your body functioning properly is dependent on that proper balance of metals and so forth within you. One of those metals is gold, and it has to do with your joints and, bloodstream and so forth. There's a certain amount of gold that exists in the body. This is why in ancient Khanate Kemet, as well as our Khan culture and our various cultures, we would utilize gold in the shrines of the divinities as a magnetic force to draw that spirit to that shrine space, so spirit possession can take place in a more optimal fashion and spirit communication and so forth. So just like in Earth, you find gold within the, rocks and so forth, and you extract the gold from the rocks and so forth. Within our bodies, within our bones, and within our joints and so forth, there's gold within the stones or the bones within us, and it facilitates joint development and the perpetuation of, a harmonious functioning skeletal system and musculoskeletal system as well as the bloodstream. So there are a number of different things that gold does in the body. But so Het Heru, like honey, was born from the tears of Ra and Ra'et, the creator and creatress. And then, of course, we say the Black woman, the only daughter of Het Heru. We talk about the daughters of the divinities and so forth, or this divinity is my mother and so forth, that only applies to Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, meaning African Black people. So the Black woman, the only daughter of Het Heru, shares in her everlasting purity by nature. Just like gold is incorruptible, just like honey is incorruptible, the nature of the spirit of the Afuraitkaitnit woman, African Black woman, who's a daughter of Het Heru, that spirit is incorruptible as well. So when we talk about abundance, gold is, it's a metal, it's a solar metal, it's incorruptible. So therefore its value is rooted in that incorruptibility. We utilize gold as, a form of media of exchange in ancient Khanate Kemet, as currency, but also in the Akan tradition, we talked about the gold dust, and we're weighing gold dust to make purchases and so forth. But it has to do with that value that's rooted in the nature of the metal, the incorruptible nature. And just like we use gold dust for, currency in the past, we also tap into the spiritual force on the feminine side that animates that gold, that Sika, it's called Sika Nakan, to assist us with abundance, incorruptible abundance in a harmonious way with regard to business and entrepreneurship here. So we invoke the force in nature that governs incorruptible abundance so we can achieve that in a harmonious way, not in a self-destructive criminal way, but in a harmonious way. We directly or, distinctly, directly, consciously, wittingly, or sometimes unconsciously, we invoke Het Heru, but that's part of the process. If you're going to have abundance that's incorruptible, she must be part of the process because she's that part of, creation, the spirit force in creation that governs that incorruptible abundance. Now, let's talked about her being a daughter of Ra and Ra'et. So let's look at that real quick. We're going to look at it in two different ways. First, so you can see, which is very important. So we've shown this before. This is one of the 31 books I've published. And this book is in Yonkonton, Ra, Ra'et. In this particular book, we were simply showing that the creator of the universe, Ra, and the creatress of the universe, Ra'et. So we don't just invoke the creator of the universe. There's a creator and a creatress. Ra is the creator, Ra'et is the creatress. In the Akan language of Ghana and Ivory Coast, the popular name for Ra is Inyokumpon, and then the popular name for Ra'et is Inyokunton in the Akan, the tree language. So we were showing in this book that Ra and Ra'et are called Inyokumpon and Inyokunton, and what those names mean and what they represent and so forth. But the key point is for this discussion that Ra is the creator and Ra'et is the creatress. There's a balance. You often hear people talking about temples of Amen or temples of Amen Ra, but they were unaware of Ra'et. And because the whites and their offspring don't focus on Ra'et, the creatress, because they're misogynistic, even when they're, writing about these things and talking about cosmology and going into tombs and so forth, they don't focus on her. So we following them, when we're not practicing an authentic expression of tradition, we do the same thing. So we'll talk about Amen, we'll talk about Ra, but we won't talk about Amenet, the great mother, or Ra'et, the creatress. So let's show that real quick, and then we're going to show why they say Het Heru is the daughter of Ra and Ra'et. So these are actual images of Ra and Ra'et. As you're going to see, this particular image of Ra is from the temple of Nefertari in ancient Kemet, the wife of Ramesu II. This particular image of Ra'et is from the temple of Kainsu in Apeta Sedu, so-called Karnak in Kemet, and I'll show why that's important. But first and foremost, when you go to Kanit, Nubia, and so-called Abu Simbel, there's the great temple of Ramesu, and you'll see in Abu Simbel, and you'll see Ramesu II. He's sitting here, and they have a statue, he's sitting in between three deities. The one on his right is the male divinity Amen. The one on his left is the male divinity Ra, and next to Amen is the deity Ptah. And then we also show them, this is Amen, this is Ra, this is Ptah, this is Atem. These are different divinities. Some people try to say Amen and Ra and Ptah are the same divinity. They're not, of course. It's misinformation. And then when we go to the temple of Apet Reset, so-called Luxor, you will see this image of Amen. He's on the right. Amenet is on the left. There's the great god Amen, supreme being on the masculine side, the great goddess, the great mother, Amenet. In Akan, they're called Inyame and Inyamewa, the great father and the great mother who work together to comprise the supreme being. Just like it took your father and your mother to work together as two halves of a whole to create you, there's a great father and great mother who function as two halves of the great divine whole we call the supreme being. And every group in Afuraitkaitnit Africa has a name for them in their language. And Akan is Inyamewa, Inyame, the great mother and great father. in Ewe, in the Vodun tradition, they call Inyamewa, they call her Mawu, and they call Amen, they call him Lisa. So when they say the Supreme Being, they'll say Mawu Lisa, mother and father, and so forth. In Yoruba, Amen is called Olorun. In Yoruba, Amenet is the great female mother divinity Olokun. So there's a balance of Olorun and Olokun in the earliest cosmology of Yoruba people and so forth. So across the board, you will find these, the balance of male and female. You'll find the great being, Amen and Amenet, and the divine living energy, they're the great being that governs all of creation, and the divine living energy surging through the great divine body of Amen and Amenet, that solar fire energy, life force energy, is the procreative power of Ra and Ra'et. Just like you are a being on a microcosmic level, you're a great being, and you have life force energy surging through you, and you can direct your life force energy through your reproductive organs to go out and create. If you're an Afurakani man, you are like a microcosm of Amen, the great being, and then your Ra force, your life force, your procreative power, that's your Ra force, and you as Amen direct your Ra force to go out and create. If you're an Afuraitkaitnit woman, an African Black woman, you're a microcosm of Amenet, the great mother. You're a child of her. And your body is like the body of Amenet, the great being, and the divine solar life force energy within you, your procreative power, is your Ra'et force. And you as the great being, Amenet, direct Ra'et, the creatress, to go out and create for you. So the Supreme Being is superior to and directs the creator and creatress. We've always understood that the creator and creatress are the grandchildren of the Supreme Being. That's never been confusion in any Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit culture. Only the white Sonaro Supreme put forth that nonsensical confusion. So, because they manufactured fake deities off of fragments of our culture. So Allah and Yahweh, Jesus, Yeshua, Buddha, Brahman, all these are fictional characters who never existed of any form or of any race whatsoever. Same with Muhammad and all the biblical characters, fictional cartoon characters who never existed. They were not Black, they weren't white, they didn't exist. And we proved that in one of our books, The Kuku Tuntun, The Ancestral Jurisdiction, to show how these characters were made up. So, but we wanted to show that relationship between the great being, Amen and Amenet, Nyamewa, Nyame, and the creator and creatress, Ra and Ra'et. Now, but getting back to Het Heru. Now, we talked about Het Heru being the daughter of Ra and Ra'et. So it says Het Heru, like honey, was born from the tears of Ra and Ra'et, the Black woman, the only daughter of Het Heru, shares in her everlasting purity by nature and so forth. So let's look at the cosmology associated with that. The coming into being of Het Heru, who is this force in creation. We know she governs the planet Afi, so-called Venus and so forth. But let's look at who she is. In fact, before we get to this particular cosmology, let me just show one thing in one of our articles. I'm going to jump right back on this. Just want to give you a breakdown real quick. Okay. So this is one of the articles that we published on Het Heru. This is an image of Het Heru. We were showing who she is in the Akan language and so forth. She's called Afi or Afia, the divinity Abosom Afi or Fida Friday. She's called Afi in Akan or Afia, as well as Afua, Het Heru, in Kemet, Oshun in Yoruba. And this is of course, the planet Afi. So we say Afi is the Abosom, the divinity of the Ochin, the planet Afi, so-called Venus. Her Da or day is Fida, Friday. She is referred to as a wanderer, traveler, adventurous, innovative, creative force in creation. She is the divinity, the Abosom, the goddess who governs the sensual attraction, which is the precursor to sexual activity, procreative activity, and that which replenishes its harmony, pleasure. Afi governs the divine reproductive system, the procreative, creative structure in creation, Abadiye creation, the divine body of Nyame, the supreme being, and thus the reproductive system within our bodies is Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people. She governs the fallopian tubes in the Afuraitkaitnit female, epididymis in the male. She also governs the gestation process. So that spiritual force in creation animating the planet Afi or Venus. The shrine in the body for her, you see this sacred sculpture of the pre-dynastic, quote unquote, bird woman and so forth. That's a symbol of Het Heru. She governs the fallopian tubes, the reproductive structure. And you'll see that the fallopian tubes, once the egg is released in the fallopian tubes, it becomes the house of that sacred, ovum that's going to be fertilized and so forth. So that ovum that's fertilized is moving through, leaving the ovaries and going into the fallopian tube. And then, fertilization takes place. The fallopian tube becomes the house that ovum takes up residence in. And that ovum is represented in the form of a sacred animal totem, the falcon and so forth. So when you look at her name, this square structure is the Het or the house, and the falcon is Her or Heru. So Het Heru, the house of the falcon and so forth. The fallopian tubes is the house. And once the ovum is released, fertilization takes place there, and then she begins the gestation process. And then eventually the, zygote is implanted in the uterus. And then Auset, the great mother Auset, misnomer Isis, but Auset, she governs the uterus and takes over that, gestation process. But now let's get back to, let's show you one more representation of her in another one of our publications, one of our books. So we wrote this particular book, Tahuti Sankofa Fa and Ifa, showing that the divinity Tahuti in ancient Kemet is called Ifa in Yoruba, Fa in Vodun, Sankofa in Akan, and so forth. Well, we talked about the relationship of Het Heru and that divinity as well, but she's the force. They often talk about her as the goddess of love and fertility and creativity and art and music and so forth, anything that's creative, gestation and so forth. Here's her sacred symbolism, the planet Afi. This is her statuary in ancient Kemet. The Ka'et, so-called cow, with the great horns and so forth. And you see the cow's horns with the solar disk in between. Sacred animal totem of Het Heru. We show that her face in that sacred symbolism is the Akan, Adinkra symbol Sankofa. But you'll see her sacred animal totem, the cow with the cow's ears. You'll see her face here. This is from the chapel of Het Heru right outside the temple of Hatshepsut. We'll show a video of that. You see she has the cow's ears here. She has the cow's ears. She governs the fallopian tubes. And then those symbolisms converge. You see the sacred cow and the horns. And you can see the cow's face in the womb of the woman, with the horns are the actual fallopian tubes. And now you see the relationship between the great cow, which is a great mother, the cow's horns, which are the fallopian tubes, the face of the cow is the, reproductive structure and so forth, that spiritual force that gestates and deals with creativity and innovation and fusing together complementary opposites in a harmonious fashion. That happens in that space within the shrine of Het Heru in the body. It also happens spiritually. She's the force that allows you to be creative. You're fusing together different notes to make a harmonious song, fusing together different colors and shapes to make a painting, fusing together different individuals to create a group or business or organization that's harmonious, that feeds the people, sustains the people, empowers the people, uplifts the people in a harmonious way. She's the force that we tap into to make that happen. So But let's look at her origins. We're going to look at some of the cosmology associated with her, some of the hymns from the temple of Het Heru and Dendera, and what do they have to say about her. So these are just, when you go to the temple of Het Heru and Dendera, you will see a number of different, hymns carved on the walls and so forth. And these are some of those hymns translated. A couple of them. Just to give you a breakdown of what the attributes that we recognize in this force in creation. First, I want to go down to okay. So now we're going to get into some of this also, but she's called the female divinity of beauty. So when they talk about Venus, the goddess of beauty and love and so forth in Rome, or Aphrodite in Greek and so forth, they stole all of that from Het Heru. Erzuli in Vodun, Oshun in Yoruba, Afua or Afia in Akan, Het Heru in ancient Kemet. This is the force that fuses together complementary opposites in a harmonious fashion. That is the manifestation of beauty. And she's the divinity of beauty, fertility, sensuality, attraction, union of complementary opposites in a harmonious fashion and so forth, sexual attraction, all these different things. She governs those things. So this is the language that we use in our ancient texts regarding her. The text says, how beautiful is your face. You appear in your sanctuary. Het Heru, the great lady of Anit, the eye of Ra. That's important. We're going to talk about the eye of Ra. You go out in procession, lady of light, who repels the darkness. You have brightened the two lands with your beauty. Ra, which is the creator himself, is praising you, making adoration before your beautiful face. The gods are making adoration for you. The goddesses are making jubilation for you. The sky and the stars are rejoicing for you as you go forth from the horizon. In this context, talking about the great, powerful, radiant, star. It looks in the form of a star, but it's the planet Afi, Venus, one of the brightest stars in the sky and so forth. And that is a shrine for the spirit of Het Heru on that level. The entire land praises you as far as the rising and settings of the Aten. That is the word for sun on the masculine side in ancient Kemet. Millions open their arms for you. Hundreds of thousands kiss the ground for you. The king of upper and lower Kemet, quote unquote Egypt, has come before you. Het Heru, lady of Anit. He makes this beautiful festival for you. He repeats it annually for eternity. So that's one of the hymns to her. Another hymn to her, adoration to you, golden one. And these are things that were chanted in ritual prayer and ritual chant to invoke the spirit of Het Heru. And once they invoked her, playing drums, chanting, and so forth, her spirit would come down, just like you would see in the Vodou tradition or Akan tradition, Yoruba tradition. Spirit comes down and possesses, and we communicate with the divinity. She'll heal, lay hands, show people the use of herbs and medicine and so forth, guide, teach, and so forth. So another ritual invocation for her is adoration to you, golden one, lady of Anit, the noble and powerful lady, in the sanctuary of the noble lady, she who shines like gold. In the temple of the Sesheshet or Sistrum, the Atenet or Atenit, that is the female term for sun. Aten is the male term for sun. So she's the Atenit, like the female sun in the land of Atum. I adore your incarnation with what your heart desires. I invoke your statue with the sacred texts. Just like we just said, when we speak these sacred texts, we're calling the spirit to come forward. Just like if somebody gets on the phone and calls out to you and speaks to you and says, can you come to our house now? And you say, okay, and then you come because the people were calling for you. As soon as we start engaging in our ancestral language, chanting, ritual prayer, ritual song, and so forth, the sacred texts, the sacred prayers, sacred chants, we provoke the spirit of the divinity to come forth harmoniously. Now, it says, I exalt your ka, meaning your soul, to the height of heaven. I praise your statue to the extent of the rays of the Aten. And that statue is a shrine for the spirit to take up residence in. May you come in peace. May you go in joy. Sweet is your heart in hearing the praises. Het Heru, the great, Lady of Anit, Eye of Ra, Lady of Heaven, Mistress, meaning masteress, leader, masteress, mistress of all the gods and goddesses, the great Arat, the lady of the great house, Per, Ur. Your beautiful face is satisfied with your beloved son, the king of upper and lower Kemet, the lord of the two lands. And that was that specific king who made sure this text was, carved in the temple. And then the final one, hail to you, Eye of Ra, Arit Ra, or the Eye of Ra, whose manifestations are numerous. Lady of names throughout the two lands, the bright one, the brightness among the gods. One does not know her statue, meaning her form, secret one of form, hidden one of image, meaning this spiritual force that's hidden and secret and sacred. Powerful one of Ba, power or spirit, power for her father. Great one in heaven who brightens the two lands with her beauties. The goddess who does not have her equal. Lady of love. One rejoices at seeing her. The gods rejoice at seeing. Luminous one in the horizon who illuminates the two lands and her rays, the Atenit, the female sun. First daughter of the Aten, the first daughter of the sun. The beautiful noble woman without another except for her, without her likeness among the goddesses. The very beautiful one of appearance in Netarit. Het Heru, the great lady of Anit, your beautiful face is satisfied with the king of upper and lower Kemet. And so you get the impression. And this one here, similar praises. Hail to you, female sovereign in the horizon, lady of the limit, female ruler of the company of the divinities. Praise to you in the noble palace. And they give, these various, attributes to her. But the key here is when they say Eye of Ra, the first lady of the sun and so forth, they talk about, so you have the Aten, that's the term for sun. The disk of the sun, the disk stands still and so forth. And Arit Ra, you see the symbol of the eye, which is the Ari, Ani, and the solar disk, the Eye of Ra. So when they talk about they often talk about, Het Heru, being born of the teardrops that came from the solar disk, the golden tears that fell, one of those golden tears turned into this spiritual force, this golden spiritual radiant force, just like that golden planet, Afi, or Venus, comes into being from the sun and so forth, the golden life force energy that comes from the solar disk. Of course, you're going to have sun rays, but then the spiritual force that comes from the spiritual forces that animate the Atenit, the sun, that golden solar light gave birth to another radiant force, which is Het Heru. And when she operates within the reproductive area, that radiant golden solar force is that force that heats you up through arousal when you see your mate, your complementary opposite, your true complementary opposite, your true divine complement and so forth. And then you're drawn together magnetically so you can fuse together complementary opposites in a balanced fashion to create a child, but also fusing your spirits together to create something like an institution, business, artwork, scientific innovations, all kinds of creativity and so forth. So the Arit Ra, they'll talk about the Eye of Ra when they're talking about the solar disk being the right eye of Ra and the lunar disk being the left eye of Ra and so forth. But the term Arit also means to create, to make, to do, to create. So when you see that eye, it literally means eye, but it also means to make or to create. And so when you see this spelling, Arit, the eye, and then the solar disk, let's go down a little bit. So this image is the image. This is the divinity Mentu, and this is Ra'et. And this is an image I took when I was in the Temple of Kensu in Kemet. It's in the precinct of Mut in Apet Asedu, which is so-called Karnak and so forth. And this is one of the few images. It's the most detailed image of Ra'et that you're going to find in all of Kemet and so forth. We knew where to look for it and so forth. We were able to get access to that temple that's actually closed for renovation and so forth, but we were able to get access to that so we can get this particular image. But when you look at the way the name is spelled, see this, the words of, this is the solar disk, which is Ra, and then the loaf of bread, which is the T, which is Ra-et. And then Tawi, meaning the two lands, Ra'et of Tawi, Ra'et of the world and so forth, governing both lands, the north and the south. But then you also see the eye and the solar disk, the Arit Ra. Now, we just saw the eye and the solar disk as a title. Arit Ra, this is the eye and the solar disk. So it's not just talking about the solar disk, not just talking about the sun. Ra'et herself is the Arit Ra. She's the quote-unquote eye of Ra, but Arit doesn't just mean eye. Arit also means to make, to do, to create. Arit Ra Neb Tawi, the creatrix of Ra, the master of the Tawi, the two lands. And you see these two horizontal bars, the two lands once again and so forth. So when she's called the Eye of Ra, she's called the creatress, the one who makes or does, fashions Arit for Ra. Her womb is the fashioner of what Ra gives. So just like the male and the female unite, the sperm and the ovum fuse together. But once the fusion takes place, it takes place in the fallopian tubes. It doesn't take place in the body of the male, it takes place in the body of the female. So the female, of course, becomes the creatrix, the womb, the creatrix of what was, given by the male and the female, but the gestation takes place in the body of the woman. So she's the quote unquote, shrine. She's the creatrix. She's the matrix. She's the womb and so forth. So she's the Arit. She's the one that makes it happen. Once the sperm and ovum fuse together in the fallopian tubes and it's sent into the uterus and so forth to implant itself, then cell mitosis begins to happen. You have cell division and so forth. And then she starts to make something out of that initiatory fusion. She starts Arit. She's making something. So she's the Arit Ra. That means Ra'et, the creatress. When they talk about the birth of Het Heru and so forth, Ra'et is the mother of Het Heru. She is the Arit Ra, and then she passes that title on to Het Heru because Ra'et creates or makes the child in the womb and so forth. She gives birth to Het Heru. Then Het Heru takes that function, that capacity, and she uses that capacity to fuse things together for us in her shrine in the body, which is the fallopian tubes. So Ra'et is the mother of Het Heru. You'll see that she has the golden solar disk on her head as well and so forth. So when they call Het Heru the Aktenit, the female sun, the firstborn of the sun and so forth, Ra'et is the spiritual force on the feminine side that operates through the Atenit, the sun, and Ra is the masculine force, of course, on the masculine side that operates through the Aten, the sun. So Aten and Atenit are the male and female terms for the solar disk. Ra and Ra'et created the Aten Atenit, the sun, and then they send their energy to penetrate and illuminate the sun, and then they use the sun to project their spiritual energy. They use it as a tool or projector to send their energy throughout our solar system. So Ra and Ra'ed are not the sun god and sun goddess. Aten is the sun god. Atenit is the sun goddess. Ra and Ra'ed use the Aten, the Atenet, to transmit their spiritual energy. They possess the sun, just like a spirit can possess you and operate through your body. Ra and Ra'ed's energy will envelop and possess the sun, and they use it as an instrument to transmit their energy. So, but that was showing the pedigree of Het Heru. And she's called the golden one, the female sun, Atenit, the daughter of Ra and Ra'ed, and so forth, the incorruptible one that comes from the solar energy, just like honey is incorruptible solar energy as well. Gold, the golden one, that directly relates her to the gold. So let's go back up real quick. Hold on 1 second. There was one part in here. Hold on a second. And of course, if you have any questions, you can post them in the chat room. So when we get to that portion, we can address any questions you have. Okay. There was one section I just wanted to go over one more time. Okay, so of course, hail to you, I of Ra. So now you know Ra, what that means, the creatress of Ra, whose manifestations are numerous, lady of names throughout the two lands, the bright one of brightness among the gods. One does not know her statue or form, secret of form, and so forth, that portion. So that's the bright, luminous portion. And then we also have hold on a sec. There was one particular line. I'm trying to find it. Okay. Oh, how beautiful is your face? Talking about the radiance of the face and so forth. Ra rejoices being near you, the sky and stars rejoice for you, the sun and moon adore you, the souls of Pe and the souls of Nekin making jubilation for your Ka. To Huti, the divinity of divine wisdom, the greatest, praising your incarnation. The company of the deities of Ra is paying homage to your soul, your Ka, who are the deities who come into being in the noon. The lords of the sanctuaries are paying homage to your name. Everyone is possessing dread of you when people get out of harmony with order, because she will bring, that correction or punishment. Het Heru, lady of Tarer, your beautiful face is the benevolent to the son of Ra. And in that context, that was the king who was making the, making sure the text was, written and so forth. It was in his particular temple, but he was making sure that was taking place. All right. So now let's look at this notion of abundance. Hold on 1 second. Okay, give me 1 second. I just want to make sure I didn't miss something that was related to that portion in the chat room. All right. Now, there's another hymn to Het Heru where it talks about her function with regard to development and agriculture and so forth, but this also has to do specifically with what we're talking about with regard to abundance. So, but before we do that, let's go to one of the articles that we published on our Ojira Sim site, because it's important as well. And this is a site where we have a number of articles on various topics that we published a few years back. So it's a couple of articles we want to look at. So you can get into this cosmology, and then we'll look at this notion of abundance. So this is the image once again, image of Het Heru. In this context, she's called Het Hert, the shrine Het of the, you see this little face is Her, and then the T feminizes it, Hert, and the symbol of the cobra shows us a female divinity. So Het Hert, instead of Het Heru, Het Hert, that's another title of her. And it means shrine or sanctuary, Het of the Hert of the face. Now, so you see her face, shrine of the face. There's another symbol of her, one of the women in ancient Kemet. The face of uncommon beauty is the shrine of Het Hert, the female divinity of beauty, the one of the beautiful luminous face and so forth, as you saw in the text. So what is the association with beauty with her? We're going to look at two different ones and how that's directly related to creativity and abundance and innovation and so forth, and motivation and all of that. Everything you need for incorruptible abundance is found in her on the feminine side. When you look upon the face of the beautiful Afuraitkaitnit African Black woman, the daughter of Het Hert, you're worshiping at the shrine of the divinity. So we see one of the women in ancient Kemet, and then you see the female divinity and her shrine. So the shrine of the face. A vessel, women are Black women only, of course, children of female divinities and so forth that govern your head, and children of Het Heru, shrines of this force in creation. So the face, Het Hert, the shrine of the face, what does that signify? So Het Heru has a title called Nefert, beautiful one. When we were reading from the text, every time it said beautiful one, when you translate it in the language of Kemet, it said Nefert. So, of course, we were reading the English translation, but we would have been saying Nefer if we were reading the language of Kemet. So one of her titles is Nefer, beautiful one. We say beauty is not a quality. Beauty is a deity. We have an article about that as well. In this vein, Het Heru is also Het Hert, the shrine of the face. The term Het not only refers to house in the language of Kemet, and this is where you get the word hut, like a hut in an African village, a hut, a shrine, a sanctuary. That comes from the ancient term Het in ancient Kemet. So it not only refers to a house, but a ritual enclosure, a sanctuary, a shrine space. The term Hert or Herit is the feminine term for face or head. Het Heru is Het Hert, the shrine of the face, in her role as the divinity, beauty, Nefert. Now, we say one can acknowledge someone who is pretty or attractive. Het Heru governs beauty and all of that. However, when one interfaces with one of uncommon beauty, the senses are activated and one pauses. Het Heru governs the sensual attraction, which is the precursor to procreative activity and the replenishment of its harmony, pleasure. This includes the fusion of complementary opposites, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, African Black man and woman, as well as the fusion of naturally occurring forms, shapes, sounds, movements, aromas, in a harmonious fashion. So if you fuse that magnetic force that a man and woman have as Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, when Het Heru is governing us and you find your true divine complement, you're naturally drawn to one another, fused together, and so forth. But that same magnetic force, she draws together things that are outwardly different, but can fuse them together harmoniously if they are to be fused together harmoniously. So, as we said before, different sounds, when they're fused together harmoniously, makes quote unquote harmonious, parentheses, beautiful music. Different colors and shapes, when fused together harmoniously, makes a harmonious, parentheses, beautiful painting. Beauty is a manifestation of divine harmony. So when something is harmonious or fused together in a harmonious, divinely ordered fashion, then that manifests nefer, or beauty. Fusing together different movements in a harmonious fashion that flow together harmoniously, that's ritual dance, and the different movements of the arms and legs wield power and force that is projected from the dancer if it's ritual dance and affects the spirits of the people in attendance. That's what ritual dance is for our people. So that force that draws together complementary opposites in a harmonious fusion, not only for people, Black people only, of course, but form, shapes, sounds, movements, aromas in a harmonious fashion. The energic force of Het Heru thus governs conception, fusion of returning Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, African ancestral spirit, and also conception, fusion of music, art, dance, perfumes, etc. The divinely ordered fusion of complements is the manifestation of divine harmony expressed as beauty in creation. So now we have a different concept of what beauty actually is. It's talking about a manifestation of divine harmony. It's reflective of divine order, things that are fused together in a harmonious fashion based on the direction of the great mother and great father, supreme being. You don't fuse together things that are disharmonious. You fuse together things that are harmonious. The Afurakani man and Afuraitkaitnit woman, two halves of a divine whole. So of course they are naturally fused together in a harmonious fashion. You don't fuse together two men or two women, dissexuality, homosexuality. That's insane. That's white culture. That's not our culture. That's a manifestation of disorder, perversity, and insanity. It's not spiritual balance. You don't fuse together non-Black individuals with Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people. They are not our balance. The balance of an Afurakani man or African Black man is not, a white female or white people. The balance of the Afurakani man, African Black man, is the Afuraitkaitnit woman, African Black woman, and vice versa. We are the only complements for one another. Anything outside of that is not harmonious fusion. It's perversion. It's forced perversion. So she only fuses together things in harmony. Now, just a couple of examples. Now, the shrines of the divinities, Abosom, Orisha, Vodou, Ntoru, Ntorotu, are often ornamented beautifully. The sculptures, murals, ritual implements, ritual clothing, incense, ritual dance, ritual song, ritual prayer, all are manifestations of divine harmony and are governed and functioned by Het Hert. This takes place in the ritual enclosure, the sanctuary. So when you see these great ornate temples and shrines and clothing and jewelry and everything else, when you see that representation of divine harmony, that's a reflection of divine order. So when you see harmonious fusion happening, that forces your spirit to get into a harmonious flow as well. Even if you were out of harmony, even if you were depressed, anxious, destructive to a certain extent, when you see something moving in divine harmony, these colors, shapes, sounds, smells, and so forth, and you come into that space, once it's moving in a harmonious fashion, then your spirit enters into that movement, and then you get recalibrated to harmony. Just perceiving harmony, something that's divinely structured, guided by Het Heru to be fashioned in a harmonious way. Once you perceive that, you project your energy into that harmonious flow, then it's reflected back to you, and now you're generating some harmony as well. You're aligning with some harmony as well. So just that ornamentation, that beauty in and of itself is a sacred spiritual, undertaking, quote unquote, science, but undertaking as well. Now, we said, but the living sanctuary, the ritual enclosure of Het Hert, is the shrine, the sanctuary Het of the face, Het. So you can have a temple that's a shrine of the divinity that represents divine harmony and projects that kind of harmonious energy, and it hits you, and then you want to realign with harmony. But the living sanctuary is the Het Hert, the shrine Het of the face. So a living shrine of Het Hert, of course, is the Afuraitkaitnit African Black woman of uncommon beauty, who is the daughter of Het Hert. It's literally the living shrine of Het Heru or Het Hert. So when you look at her face, the Herit or Hert, you're worshiping or you're invoking at the shrine of Het Hert. So we say we have beautiful shrines formed of wood, precious metals, mineral life, and you see these in different places and ritual practices and so forth. Yet we also have spirigenetic shrines embodied in as the individual who is a child of the divinity. So if you look at a shrine that has, gold and silver and precious stones and all these different ornaments and so forth, and you want to make sure that it's not defiled or desecrated, then of course the living shrine of that spirit, which is the Afuraitkaitnit woman, we don't desecrate those sacred shrines either. So we say we don't desecrate our sacred shrines. We preserve and protect the purity and sanctity of our sacred shrines, for they are direct living links to the divinities. And that is the living shrine, which is the woman, as well as the physical shrines that are built and structured and so forth. Now, let's look back at the relationship of her with regard to agriculture and development and so forth, and creativity, nurturing, and how it's related to abundance and incorruptible abundance. We know she's the force that deals with that conception, the beginning of gestation, creativity, fusion of complementary opposites, and that also has to do with business. If you start off in a harmonious place, then that abundance that comes forth from, a harmonious fusion manifests in an incorruptible way. Now, we're going to go back to one of these texts. Okay, so they're talking about the agricultural cycle, but this is important. So talking about Het Heru in the Temple of Dendera. And let me just show you, before we get on that, I want to show you one of these living shrines that we're talking about so you can have an actual visual of that. Hold on one second. Let me see. Well, first of all, that's in the temple of Aperasetu, so-called Karnak. Walking through, and then we go to the temple of Kensu. first of all, on the columns, on the pillars, this is Ra-Et right here. And you can see her name spelled Ra-Et and Ra-Et Tawi, right up the two lands and so forth. See those two bars that you saw before? This is Ra-Et. As soon as you walk in the temples, you know where to look. Ra-Et is on different pillars, these great pillars within the temple. But let's go back. Hold on 1 second. I want to go to the beginning. Hold on 1 second. Actually, there's another. I'm going to go to a different view right quick because I want you to get the other video on Ra-Et. That's important as well. So that was in the Temple of Apera-Sedu, but then there's another one. So it includes this is right in the Temple of Cain Su, in the precinct of Mut, in Apera-Sedu in so-called Karnak. That's Mantu next to her. She's Ra, as you can see, there's words of Ra-Et, Tawi, Ra. And that was important because many people will go to Kemet. They will go to Kemet, they'll take people in shrines and so forth. They'll show them images of Amen, they'll show them images of Ra, say this is Ra, the creator of the universe. And then they'll keep going and go to the next, pillar, because they don't even know that Ra-Et exists. And you have people who've been taking people to Kemet for 20 years and they didn't know Ra-Et existed, didn't know that Amenet was the great mother. It's still a patriarchal male focus because we're imitating the whites and our offspring. When we actually practice the ancestral religion, which is still the same tradition as it's been for thousands of years, even in the Hoodoo tradition in North America, we still invoke the great mother and great father, so we know who they are. So when we go to Kemet, we know who to look for and where to look for them and find them and bring that information to our people so you can see evidence that our people are always about balance. They knew who the great mother is and great father and invoke both in common. So now let's switch back to this cosmology of her dealing with agriculture. So this is the portion where we deal with this notion of abundance. So in this hymn, they say, you cause the flood flowing downriver in its season and appropriate flood, devoid of calamities, in order to make it spread over both lands, talking about the flood of the river to make the land, fertile and abundant. You cause the sky to bring forth the northern wind in the next season to make the flood flow back upstream and prevent the waves of the sea from engulfing it too soon. You cause the coastal lakes connected to the Mediterranean Sea, river, mouths to build up dikes before it, preventing the Mediterranean Sea from receiving it at once. That's just north of Kemet, the Mediterranean Sea, the Watch or the Great Green Sea and so forth. You cause the Mediterranean or Watch or to receive it on the appropriate day without its course being held up any longer, because the river of Kemet, the Hapi River, goes and empties out into the Watch or the Mediterranean. So they're talking about She's making sure that's a harmonious process. And then, so here's the point. You cause the watered earth to close over the seed when its right time has come, and to gleam with all the grain it has received, which grow and mature, healthy and magnificent. You cause the men to work in joy. You cause them to reap it in joy. You protect it against all inclemencies coming from the sky and against all calamities coming from the earth. So what they're talking about here is she's governing the agricultural process, the seeding process, the germinating and rooting and flowering process and so forth. Men are working in joy and reaping in joy and sowing and reaping in joy and so forth. So this whole process of sowing, reaping, gestation, development, rooting, flowering, and enjoying the fruits of that, and Het Heru, making sure that the seed is protected, making sure that the rains and other windstorms and so forth doesn't destroy what's been created agriculturally, making sure that flood waters and other things don't disrupt the development, so that once the crops come to full maturity, you can benefit from that and everybody is joyous and everything else. The same is true when you invoke her in the context of abundance for business, for entrepreneurship, for entrepreneurial activity. She's that force that assists you in the creative aspect. When you're trying to create, what kind of business am I going to create? What kind of product? What kind of service? Is it something that is needed? Is it in harmony with order? She's not going to assist you in just creating something that makes money that destroys our community in the process. She's not going to help you be a drug dealer or something like that. The deities, the forces in nature, are the embodiments of divine order. You will only invoke them or align with them if you're trying to do something that's in harmony with order. So you invoke her and she stimulates your spirit, that creative flow, so you can attune to what you need to put forward, use your talents and abilities, your inborn, genetically inherited talents and abilities to create something that's in harmony with divine order, but also beneficial for our people and so forth, that you have the capacity to put forward. She assists you in that process. And as you're developing that, sowing and germinating and rooting and flowering and so forth, sprouting and flowering, she's assisting you through that process to make sure it comes to full fruition. And then you not only sow, but you also reap that. And she's a protective force while that's happening. So it says you cause the son of Ra. They're talking about the person who ordered this inscription on that particular temple, that particular king who was ruling at the time. You caused the son of Ra, him, that particular king, to offer the produce of the earth to be depicted on your great and imposing offering tables. You receive them from his hand favorably. You give him in return victory and courage, power, supremacy, and many years. You deliver to him the sovereigns of all the flat lands and all the mountainous lands prostrate, while his mace is hovering above their heads. So what they're saying there is not only does she assist him in creating what needs to be created and developed when he lived in harmony with her and he's praising her and so forth. But once he was able to do that and bring forward what needs to be brought forward in the context of political development, she protected him and also assisted him to continuously be victorious in what he was doing politically, what he created, kind of nation building, institution building that he wanted to create that was going to be sustained. So at the same time, she does the same thing for us when we're creating, whether it's a business, an institution, we're invoking the divinity of beauty. What is beauty? Nefert. What is Nefert? The expression of divine harmony. If you're doing something that's harmonious, harmony, if you drew a picture of harmony, that's what beauty is. It is the expression of divine harmony. It's something that's reflective of divine order. If you engage in activities that are reflective of divine order, they're going to manifest as harmony. And we call that, quote unquote, nefert, or beautiful. If it's out of harmony with order, then it's, quote unquote, ugly or disordered. But if it's beautiful, that means it's a reflection of divine order. It's a manifestation of divine harmony. So if you create a business, product, institution, whatever it is, that's a reflection of divine order, then it's going to be nefer. It's going to be beautiful, and she will assist you in that process to make sure it's harmonious. So when you put it forward for the people and they indulge in that and take your product or service or whatever, then they're going to derive some benefit, some harmonious, ordered benefit from it as well. Hold on 1 second. So let me touch on one more thing, then we're going to answer some questions. Back to the Odwirafo section. As we talked about nefer, beauty, we want to define it a little bit further so you can get the full definition. Okay, and this is the link, and I'll put that link in the chat room for you. And there's a number of different articles at that link. That's one of them, but there are multiple ones. In fact, we had a number of different articles on Het Heru that we published a few years back, and we're touching on a couple of them tonight. So we mentioned in the other article, Het Heru Nefert, that is one of her titles. We said beauty is not a quality. Beauty is actually a deity. She is called Het Heru Nefert. Nefert means, and that's the actual medutu, the symbol, the hieroglyphic symbol, the medut for Nefert. So she is literally called Nefert, the beautiful one, but that is a deity title. Nefert, beauty is not a quality, beauty is a deity. We've always understood that. We say Het Heru has the title Nefert. In Akan, that's Fefe, means beautiful. In ancient Kemet, it's Nefet, same term, title, and so forth. Beautiful one. As Nefert, sometimes they'll just call her Nefet, a divine force in creation, a bosom, divinity. The medut hieroglyph representing the sounds Nefert is shown to be the combination of the trachea and the heart. This is an actual, you'll see the trachea and then the heart at the bottom and so forth. And let me pull up something real quick. I'm going to show you actual representation in the hieroglyphic dictionary for that term, so you can see what it looks like and see what we're touching on. Okay, so let me just show you first so you can see what we're talking about, and then we'll get back to the article. This is in the Medut Total Dictionary, the hieroglyphic dictionary. So as you can see, Nefer, and you see the little symbol here. This is the symbol. Okay, this is moving a little bit slow, but Nefer, to be good, pleasant, beautiful, excellent, well-doing, gracious, happy, pretty, to progress favorably in sickness to recover and so forth. Beautiful, excellent, all those different things. Nefer on the masculine side, nefert with a T on the feminine side. And there are different variations of that, good material and so forth, a number of different derivations. You also have nefer, fine gold, very great. Nefer, noob, and so forth. Nefer, to succeed, to prosper. The same term for beauty is the same term for to succeed, to prosper, because succeeding, prosperity, a manifestation of divine harmony and so forth. Nefert with a T, feminine. You also have splendors, plural, a good or beautiful thing, prosperity, happiness, success. So the same title of the divinity dealing with beauty is also dealing with success. Success, once again, in our language, different with the whites and offspring. Success is you did what you wanted to do, so you're successful. For us, nefer, beauty, is a revelation of divine harmony and so forth. That's, expresses divine harmony, expresses divine order. That's also success. When you do something that expresses divine order, that's not only beautiful, but it's also successful. If you engage in any thoughts, intentions, and actions that are not in harmony with divine order, that's not successful. You can only be successful if you're expressing divine order. And beauty is a revelation of that. So prosperity, happiness, success, good things, all of that, assuredly. And then we look at nefri, good one, beautiful one. Nefert, door, gate, or portal. Nefer, house of beauty. Nefert, the beautiful or good land, the name of Amentet, which is the land of the West. So when you transition to become an honored ancestor or honored ancestress, when you go to the land of Ament or Amentet, we call it the beautiful land, because you go dwell with the honored ancestresses and ancestors, the venerable, spiritually cultivated class of ancestresses and ancestors. Is a harmonious thing. If you lived in harmony, out of harmony with order, in disorder, and you were self-destructive and so forth, you're repelled from that class of ancestresses and ancestors, and then you're living amongst those who are self-destructive and disordered and corrupt and perverse and so forth, and it's not a beautiful thing. But the beautiful West, Amentet Nefert, we look forward to the ancestral realm when you live in harmony with divine order. So that's why the land of the West is also referenced as Nefert, but it's qualified based on what you did. On the masculine side, Osar, misnomered Osiris, that's a Greek corruption, but Osar on the masculine side is Nefer, the good divinity, excellent, living in harmony with divine order. But on the feminine side is Nefert or Neferit, a goddess, daughter of the great God, the good or beautiful goddess, the virgin goddess, and so forth. That is talking about Het Heru or Het Hert. But let me pull this up. Just so you can see that, actual representation of that. So when we're talking about in the article, the spelling, even the first part, nef, the wavy water line you see here is the n sound. And then the horned viper, the little serpent right there, is the F sound, the F sound. And then the ovular structure is the form of the open mouth. And that is the sound. Even when you say your mouth is in that shape like that. So the wavy water line is the n. The little horned viper serpent is the f sound. And when they spit their venom and so forth, it's like a f sound. So you have and then the F sound, which is the F sound, which is the breath sound, and then the sound, which is the open mouth. So that's N, F, R. That's how it's spelled in the Medutu. So we just wanted to show you that. So now we'll switch back to the article. So when we're saying what is spelled like, we said the N sound is the N sound, born of the primordial energy of Nun and Nanet, the male and female divinity of the root energy of being and creation, the black substance of space, the wave energy, the idle energy within black substance of space within which we all exist. Planets, suns, moons, and stars exist within the great black substance, the Ka and Ka'et. And that wave energy within the black substance that's operating right now is Nun and Nanet, a male and female divinity. But that sound, that primordial root energy sound, the sound is derived directly from their functioning in creation. The root energy of being from which all things in as creation are formed. The F sound, which is the breath, the vital animated breath of the serpent divinities. There's a group of serpent divinities called Fayu. But even when you say, you have to have the breath. When you say, that's a vibratory frequency. When you say F and say, that's breath. So that serpent, that vital F breath, animated breath force is the F. So you have and F. And then the R sound is the or the Ra, the radiant generative power of Ra and Ra'et, the radiant force. So you have the energy of Nun and Nanet, the sound. You have the F for animated breath of the Fayu spirits, and then the Ra, the radiant glowing force of Ra and Ra'et. And then you have the T sound, which concretizes or forms in the feminine and so forth. Just like in the language, the feminine T, like you have Ra, masculine, Ra'et, feminine, Amen, masculine, Amenet, feminine, Nefer, masculine, Nefert with a T, feminine. And that's the language of ancient Khanate and Kemet, because the T concretizes or feminizes, makes something a thing. That's, of course, passed over into English, like Sean and Shawnette and John and Johnette and George and Georgette and so forth. The et feminizes the name. But that comes from our language. So, F, and T is the primordial root energy of being, animated by the vital breath, the F sound, and radiance, Ra, of the creator and creatress, concretized into a feminine form and force, and that's the T. That is Het Heru Nefer. That's the definition of beauty. This is why beauty as a deity is concretized energy, breath, and radiant force. So, beauty itself, Nefert, is the primordial root energy of being, animated by the vital breath and radiance of the creator and creatress, concretized into feminine form and force. That's our definition of beauty. So beauty is a deity. That is, when Het Heru is functioning in her form as Nefert, and you call her Nefert, to bring out that quality in her and evoke that quality in her. She is the root energy of being, animated by vital breath and radiance of the creator and creatress, concretized into feminine form and force. So that concretized energy, breath, and radiant force is literally motivation. So it motivates us. If you have energy that's concretized within breath and radiant force, that motivates you to move forward and create and expand and develop and everything else. The trachea symbol connected to the heart. This is why you have that symbol. This is literally, if you just have this symbol right here, it's Nefert. You don't have to write the N, the wave line, the little serpent for the F, and the open mouth for the R, and the loaf of bread for the T. You don't have to write all that. All you have to do is draw this symbol, the trachea on the top, and the heart at the bottom. And that is Nefert, and the people knew that. So the trachea connected to the heart. The trachea symbol connected to the heart connects the vitality of breath, which carries the life force energy of Ra and Ra'et, the mother and father of Het Heru, to the organ which incessantly pumps energized blood, and thus life force energy to every cell of the body. This brings goodness, harmony, balance, beauty. So even that symbol, the vitalized breath operant through the heart that carries the life force energy and so forth, that's an animating force, that's motivational, that has to do with beauty. So as we said in the other article, the daughters of Het Heru Nefert are vessels, living shrines of her divine function. And of course, that's within the Black population of Afuraitkaitnit, Afuraitkaitnit women only. Now, we say beauty is not a quality. Beauty is first and foremost a deity. Nefert is a deity. Beauty is a deity. A divine force in creation, Nefert, her living shrines therefore have the capacity to motivate, move us as Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people towards harmony, the manifestation of beauty and creation in all that we do. So you often see these children of Het Heru, Oshun, Erzuli, Afia, Afu, and so forth, being motivational. They have that energy that's motivational and so forth. There's a reason for that. There's a cosmological reason for that. All right. All right, so let me look at this. The chat room. Okay, Yerasi. We appreciate that, Yerasi. Okay, I just want to make sure we didn't have any. Of course, if you have any questions, post them in the chat room. And while we're on that, let me switch over to the final portion. So we talked about incorruptibility, incorruptible abundance. And we talked about incorruptible abundance meditation. So when you're looking at you see here Amenhotep, the son of Hapu, seated in the meditative posture. And in fact, let me show you I'm going to show you the trailer for that so you can see the other image as well. So this is our Susu page on the website. And we have our meditation instructor certification. The new course is starting this Wednesday. We're just finishing up the first course this week, but the new course starting Wednesday if you like to be certified as an instructor. So this is Amenhotep, the son of Hapu, in the traditional meditative posture and so forth. Here we're in Abu Simbel, Kanit, ancient Kanit. You'll see the pit. This is Ra, by the way, in the temple, but you also see at the top of the temple, you also see Ramesu II sitting in a traditional meditative posture as well. But we show in the Khan tradition, this is one of the statuary in the Akan tradition. Hold on a second. traditional Akan statue of the woman seated. Hold on a second. The woman seated on her gua, sacred ancestral seat, and so forth. It's a ritual sculpture, the Baule Khan in Ivory Coast. But this traditional seated posture, when you sit down on the gua, at the shrine of the abosom of the deities, as well as in front of the shrine, the Nkomre, of the Nananom Nsamanfo, the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors. So when we sit down in front of the shrines, seated on a gua like this, or seated in the traditional, posture on the floor and so forth, and we engage the susu process, the meditative process. And let's get back on that. Switch you back over to this. All right. So when we are, like Amenhotep, the son of Hapu, or the female divinity you see here in the background, when we sit down at the Nkomre in front of the shrine, and we begin to engage the process of susu, which is meditation, you're listening to and communicating with the abosom, the divinities, inclusive of Het Heru, invoking her by her name, Het Hert. If you don't know the clan you come from, we use the language of ancient Khanid and Kemet because the various languages across Western, Central, and South, Afuraitkaitnit, and East, derive from this ancient language. So if you don't know what your ancestral group is, you can use the ancient language of Kemet and invoke her as Het Hert. If you know, for example, your Yoruba, you can invoke her as Oshun. If you know your Ewe, you can invoke her as Erzuli. We in the Akan tradition, we invoke her as Afua or Afia, as well as Cheche. If you use the language of ancient Khanid and Kemet, Het Hert, but invoking her by her name, Het Hert, or Het Hert Nefet, or Het Herit, and so forth. Once you invoke her, just like if you were in a dark room and then you heard somebody call your name, you'll be drawn to the sound of the voice, wherever that voice is in the dark space. When you sit in front of a shrine and you pour libation or you light incense and so forth, and you calm yourself through the susu process, the meditative process, and you invoke, meaning call from within, voke or vocalize, voke from within, invoke the divinity by name, then you begin to draw that spirit to you and draw yourself to that divinity. And she comes forth with spirit possession, a spirit communication, and assists you to realign your spirit with that expression of energy that she governs. So when you're trying to figure out how to establish a form, a business, a cultural form, artistic form, institutional form, political form, whatever it is, form something, a harmonious form, a fusion of complementary opposites to create some kind of scientific development, innovation, some artistic creation, some scholastic institution or training institution or employment institution or training institution or whatever it is, or you're trying to create some business or a service, you want to do it in harmony with divine order, and you elicit the assistance of the divinity, seated in the susu posture, position, invoking the divinity by name, and then listening. No different than if you went to your great-grandparents and they were at their home and you went into their home or their shrine, quote unquote, and you offered them some food and some water to drink and so forth. And then you sat down, you called their names and you asked for some direction and you sat down and listened and they gave you information and so forth. No different than when we sit in front of the Nkomre, the shrine, to invoke the abosom, the divinities, and evoke the ancestral spirits. It's the same way. So when we do that and we invoke her by name, now you're engaged in the susu process. And as we teach in our course, susu, this ancient term for what the whites and offspring call meditation, susu literally means to measure, to take measure. Just like the root of the term meditation, med, means to take measure. And that's stolen from the ancient term incarnate, met, meaning to take measure. So when you engage that process of taking measure of your spirit body and aligning yourself with forces in creation, then you avail yourself of what's in harmony with order, what's the best way to go about something, what's going to lead to abundance, and what's something that's, can be corruptible, that's out of harmony with order. So we go into some detail about that. Our next course for the Susu Meditation Instructor Certification, this means that you become certified as a Susu or meditation instructor. You can take that certification and utilize it to go into schools or organizations or places of employment or different venues, and people pay $100, $200, $300 for somebody to conduct a 20-minute session with youth or with their employees to enhance, productivity. Or if you're at a human services organization, they have group therapy and they want you to come out and do meditation with the women who are at the shelter to reduce anxiety or stress. Or somebody's having a conference and they're talking about weight loss or, mindfulness or focus, and they want you to do a 20-minute or 30-minute session with the people to teach a little bit, but also go through a meditative session and so forth. People pay $100, $200, $300 for a session like that. So they typically ask for a, credential, and we've decided to put forward that credential. We've been teaching on Susu for 20 years. We've been doing Susu, engaged in meditation for 30 years, since 94. But we've been teaching on it. We first published on it in the Patasa Satem as far as instructive 20 years ago. Patasa Satem is one of our books, and in one of the sections, the modules, it's an educational curriculum. One of the modules we deal with Susu or meditation. So we've been publishing and teaching on it for 20 years. So we decided to put forth this certification course. So you don't have to go through other organizations to get a certification. You can go through us because, you're going to get some accurate information and a lot of misinformation. They're definitely not going to give you the cosmology that undergirds the process of meditation, which predates India and Hinduism by thousands of years. So we give the real information. So our next course, the first course ends actually tomorrow. So that first group of students are being certified. They're going to receive their certifications tomorrow, their certificates. So they'll be certified and they can go out and utilize that to generate income for themselves in a harmonious fashion as part of that incorruptible abundance. The next course for domestic is this Awukuda Wednesday, July 10th, 8 p.m. So you can still register for that. And I said domestic because we also added, so you'll see this, the flyer, July 10th through July 31st. Every Wednesday for 4 weeks, 8 p.m. online course and so forth. And we're going to be going through some of the 31 books I've published that are germane to that topic. We also added the option for those who live overseas because, of course, the time difference. So July 15th, which is next week, next Monday, July 15th through August 5th, 8 p.m., the GMT +2 time. So you'll see the, like for us, for example, England is like 4 hours ahead of Eastern Standard Time, and then France is like 5 hours, and the Netherlands like 6 hours and so forth. So we have that option because, of course, people living overseas in those areas, they can't take an 8 p.m. course here because that's like 12 or 1 or 2 in the morning for them there. So we decided to create this option for those who are in Europe, as well as Afuraitkaitnit and West and Central Afuraitkaitnit, as well as South. So we have that option as well. But that starts next week for the international, and that's next Monday, July 15th. But for domestic for here, this Wednesday, July 10th, the next course begins. We do have a deposit option where you can pay 50% down, and then next week or the following week, you can pay the other 50%. And we also have, we did a video on this, a referral fee option. And that's for you if you refer the course to someone who you know who's interested in meditation, who would like to become an instructor so they can, engage in employment, whether it's part-time or full-time. Some people do it full-time. They'll get a school, organization, cultural organization, one per day, like one school on Monday and Wednesday, a cultural organization on Tuesday and Thursday, and so forth. Community center on Friday. And each day they'll have somewhere to go. If they go once a week to these different places, they get $100 or $200 per organization. So they can generate $500 or $600 or $700 or $800 a week. And they'll do it full-time or part-time. So if you know somebody who's interested in Susu and meditation as to be an instructor, be certified, if you refer them once they register, then we'll send you a $100 referral fee for, referring them to us. Because of course, if you didn't refer them, we would have, known who they were. Our certification course is $399. It's 4 weeks, so it's basically $99 a week for 4 weeks. You can pay $199 down payment, and to register, and then the other $199 you can pay next week or the week after. And then the books, as we said, we have 31 books. Our books are free downloads. So the books that we're going through, you can download them for free. The ones we're going to go through, as well as all of our 31 books, you have access to for free. So, but if you have the referral fee, you refer one person, you receive $100. If you refer 2 people, $200. If you refer 5 people, you'll receive $500. When they pay $399, the $400 fee or $399 fee will automatically PayPal you or Cash App you or Zelle you the $100 for referring them to our organization. So that's a way to, also empower the community, not only by certifying people, but also through this referral option. So that is coming up Wednesday, so you can check that out. Okay, I want to make sure I didn't miss any. If there are any questions germane to this before we end. I just want to make sure. Okay, that connection between Wusi and Het Heru. I saw you mention that in a couple of questions. So let me show you. Let me show you this link right quick, because this link will answer the different questions you asked about. This is the link right here. We actually did an article revolving around that specific combination you're asking about in the chat. Okay, so on the OG.sim page, when you scroll down on any one of the articles, you scroll all the way down and you'll see it says the recent posts, but all the articles are there. So the one that you're asking about with regard to Awusi and Het Heru and the different, cultural practices and so forth is, hold on a second. I just want to make sure I may have scrolled by it. Okay, here it is. Okay, so the article is called Heju, Ne Antiu, Frankincense and Myrrh, All-Sar and All-Set in All-Sar and Het Heru in Wati, which is another title for Venus in ancient Kemet. So you see, frankincense is the white resin. Myrrh is the red resin. There's a form of Alsar who operates through the planet Afi on the masculine side. Then, of course, Het Heru operates through the planet Afi. And they govern Hedju and Antiu, which are the terms in ancient Khanate and Kemet for the white and red resins, which is frankincense and myrrh. So we did a whole article about that. And that, so when you click on it, you'll see that link. So let me put that link in the chat room. This is okay. So that's the Hedju ne Antiu, frankincense and myrrh. Even if you just Google Hedju ne Antiu, it's going to pop up, in a search engine. Okay. So and that gets into that relationship between Alsar and Het Heru, which in Yoruba that's Obatala and Oshun and so forth. So it gets into that. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and end it here. We're almost, we just hit 11 o'clock. So if you have any questions, of course, hit us up on Instagram, Facebook is Odwirafo, Kwesi Akan, and so forth, or via our email. And once again, there was one other question. Have you heard of Sa and Sapatit? If you look in our book, Kuku Tuntun, the Ancestral Jurisdiction, we talk about Sa and Sapatit. Sa is the term for what the whites and offspring call Orion, and Sapatit is what they call Sirius or Sothis. So when you see Alsar and Alset operant in that stellar region, Sa or Sahu is the stellar shrine for Alsar. So he's called Alsar Sa. They'll say Osiris Orion, but it's Alsar Sa. And then Alset operates through Sapatit, and she's called Alset Sapatit. She's also called Alset Rekit, meaning Alset the wise one. She's Alset Sapatit. They'll call it Isis Sothis or Isis Sirius, but it's Alset Sapatit, and that's when they're operating through, quote unquote, Orion and Sirius. So in our book, Kuku Tuntun, the Ancestral Jurisdiction, we go into that cosmology. So let me just show the image for that. You can download the book for free, of course. So this is the Kuku Tuntun, the Ancestral Jurisdiction. Well, on the NHOMA page, on the NHOMA page on our website, I'll put the link in the chat room, but it's NHOMA, which means publications. So I'll put this in the... Okay, so that... Okay, so it's the NHOMA page on our website, ojirafo.com/NHOMA. And when you go to that page, when you scroll down, you will see the covers of all 31 of the books I've published, and the ebook versions you can download for free. So you click on the cover, and most of them it'll open up right there. Some of them it'll go to its own page, and then the book is on that page. So, but the one you're looking for is the very first one, Kuku Tuntun, the Ancestral Jurisdiction. That takes you to the Kuku Tuntun page, and you have to scroll down, and then you'll see the book itself. When you click on that, later in the book, I mean, you can you scroll down and see. We actually have some images. We talk about that entire cosmology. So this is This is Aset when she's operating through Sapatit, the planet, the star Sirius. See the star over her head. Sar when he's operating through the star system Sa, which is so-called Orion. See the 3 stars of Orion or whatever. And then Heru when he's operating as the child of Asar and Aset, operating through, Sa and Sapatit. So when you see Asar, Aset, and Heru operating through those stellar shrines, this is where they stole the story of Solomon, Sheba, and Menelik. So we show how they manufactured Solomon, Sheba, and Menelik off of the interaction of Asar, Aset, and Heru operant through Sa, Orion, and Sapatit, Sirius, or Sophus. Okay. Okay. So once again, Yedase, we thank everybody for tuning in. If you look on our page, also on the Susu page on our website, we have some other recent lives that we have done. So when you go back to the page, this is the page for the instruction certification. And when you refer people, you just send them to our page. Let me put that link in the chat room. They can watch the trailer. That will give them insight on what's going on. They'll see the flyers and so forth. They can make their down payments here. The options, Cash App and Zelle and Venmo and all of that. But we also have a number of the different presentations we've done over the past few weeks dealing with Susu and meditation, like Merit Segert, the female divinity of silence and meditation, who governs the epiglottis, which is the organ in your throat region that covers the trachea and so forth and stops sound and causes you to be silent. And she's the spiritual force that governs that shrine in your body, but she also governs the cutting off of the stream of thought so that you can become silent spiritually, so you can attune to the messages coming from the spirit realm. And a number of different things that we've talked about, a number of different topics dealing with Susu meditation and different facets of that. So you can see all of those on that page as well. Okay. So, all right. So, Yedase, we thank you once again for tuning in, and Yebe Shia Bio. We will meet again. That's it.